I am live. Good morning, everybody. It's me again, Truth Teacher, coming at you with a live stream. Um, don't know how many of you will be here, but you'll see it later, I suppose. Don't know how interactive I'm gonna be, but the best way for me to get out content is to do these live streams. So I was supposed to do this actually last weekend, but I got so busy. Oh man, I had I was gonna do this Friday, but then I had a gig the next day. I had to prepare for that, and that gig took me all day. That was a whole day thing. It was a really nice fun. It was a fun gig though. It was out in a winery in where was this? It was called New Egypt, New Jersey, and it was me and four other performers, and it was fun. I've never been to a winery before, and it was a really nice crowd. Really fun day, but it took me forever. It took me all day because we had like several performance times throughout the afternoon, and then getting back, I had to catch an Uber and a train to get back. So I didn't get back home until like 1 o'clock, you know. And then they called me the next day. Hey, Morena, what up, sweetie? So the next day, which was Sunday, I was gonna do the live stream and I was trying to get on the StreamYard and I couldn't get on the StreamYard for nothing, which turned out to be a good thing because they called me again. The event, it was a 2 day event, but I was only scheduled to perform the first day. But one of the performers couldn't make it, so they asked me, oh, could you, fill in? So I said, yeah. There was a girl like close by me, she was gonna pick me up. She said, I gotta pick you up in 45 minutes. I'm like, oh shit. Literally, I was in my pajamas, man. She picked me up in my pajamas. I threw everything in my baggies, was out, you know? But to get to the topic, what I wish I realized about African spirituality, hey, sweetie, how you doing? What I wish I realized before joining an African traditional spiritual practice. Now, I'm gonna say like what motivated me to make this video. I was on Facebook and I saw one of my god brothers talking about the fact that within our tradition, there's a lot of people who are scamming. You know, you have people from Nigeria claiming to be priests. I'm bitching about the way you make my life miserable. So as I was saying, there's people from Nigeria who are claiming to be priests who end up doing all kinds of things that are really unscrupulous and scamming the hell out of people for money. And, even in Cuba, because this tradition was developed in Cuba, you have a lot of people who are doing the same thing, bullshitting. And everywhere where this religion has popped up, we have the same problem with people taking advantage of us, and people end up losing money. They end up being caught up in some really emotionally abusive situations, exploited, sometimes even sexually abused. And in particular, The post that my god brother made was directed at people, I guess, African Americans, who fall victim because they have this idea, or it's not just African Americans, a lot of us in the diaspora here in the West, there's a very deep seated insecurity that we have because we've been made to feel like we're damaged goods. And yeah, Morena, you're absolutely right. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. But the thing is that a lot of us have been made to feel like we're damaged goods because of slavery, because of the fact that we don't speak our traditional languages anymore, whatever, whatever. And we kind of look at people in Africa as if, they have it all. They got their history, they got their language, they have their culture, and we end up having some kind of inferiority complex that we're not as, how do you put this? We're not as African as they are, or we're not as black as they are, because we've been compromised. We're not racially pure, all of this baggage that we're carrying on in our heads. And the biggest mistake I think that we make is the assumption that if the person we're dealing with is black or African, that they automatically have our best interest at heart, that there's some kind of camaraderie or understanding that we all have, like, code of conduct. And so it leaves us vulnerable to exploitation. Let me see what Morena is saying here. Yeah, but a lot of Africans try to tell us what's right and wrong in our religion. I like that we put you on, so if you don't like how it's practiced, create your own. I guess we have language and culture too, in the manner that we were able to retain it. Absolutely, Morena. But you see, this is the misunderstanding that a lot of us have. We think that we're lacking, and we're not. Because at the end of the day, you have to realize what culture is. Culture is the ways in which people have created in order to survive in their environment. And while it may be all good and well, whatever is happening in Africa, the fact of the matter is that's a different environment, different circumstances. We all came here from many different places in Africa. And I think a big part of the problem is, even though we say that so many times, we still don't really have an understanding for that. Because when we came over here, our identities were based on color. The powers that be really reduced us to one thing. We're all African, we're all black. And that's it, which is really absurd because, for example, that would be like going to Europe and telling somebody from England that they're the as somebody from Italy. The same people, you got the same culture. I mean, we know how ridiculous that is because these two people are nothing alike when it comes to culture, when it comes to history, their outlook on life. It's very different. So why is it that we have this idea? Hey, what's up, Harlem? Why is it that we have this idea that all people in Africa are the same or were the same, had the same culture, had the same code of ethics, whatever. And that when we meet somebody, they're supposed to be, from over there, there's supposed to be this automatic camaraderie. It's not realistic. And furthermore, because of the racial situations we found ourselves in, a lot of us have made this assumption that everything European is bad and everything African is good. Everything that's white is bad and everything that's black is beautiful. And the fact of the matter is, that's not the way real life works. Now, when it comes to myself, I wish that I had understood this dynamic before I started practicing or getting involved in an African, well, in the tradition, right? Because it would have saved me a lot of heartache and a lot of pain. My experience with Christianity was very toxic. No way around that. And even if I had known what I know now, I still would have walked away from Christianity because it just doesn't align with my basic principles of life and spirituality. I don't believe in original sin. I don't believe in a heaven or a hell. I don't believe in a devil. None of those things make any sense to me. And so, and most of all, this idea that there's only one right religion. None of those things make any sense to me. Hey, Tina, what's up, sweetie? None of those things make any sense to me that, you know, there's one religion, right? Out of all the people in the world, God chose one group of people from one tiny area in the world to reveal his truth of the universe. And that if you were not lucky enough to be born as one of those people or to be born in an area where you heard this message, your soul is completely and totally damned for eternity. That is just extremely illogical to me. So, yeah, I can't resonate with that. But having said that, like I said, my experience with Christianity was very toxic, very emotionally damaging. Besides the basic philosophy, which I don't agree with, the kind of people that I was around, how do I put this? These were emotionally disturbed people who really needed help. And the sad part about it is that a lot of the people, most of the people, if not all, who were in those churches were people who were suffering from deep psychological and emotional traumas who needed help. And they came to the church looking for that help. But it was the blind leading the blind because the pastors were just as emotionally disturbed as the people that were coming looking to them for help. So it was the blind leading the blind. Um, I decided to leave the church when I found myself becoming psychologically and emotionally unglued. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Just as a comparison, my cousin, he had to be institutionalized on at least 3 different occasions because of the intensity of the fanaticism that he experienced, with his parents in this religion he snapped. And I was going down the same road because they just made life, following their perspective on life, it was impossible to lead a normal life. I mean, how do you deal with a situation where you're having just normal, you know, normal challenges in life, but people are telling you that the reason why you're having those problems is because you have demons, you're demon possessed. And you're trying to explain to somebody a conflict or a situation that you're having, and they look you dead in your eyes and tell you, oh, well, you don't even know what you're saying because you're not even conscious right now. This is a demon that's just speaking out of you. You know, how do you deal with that? And so that's what I was dealing with, you know, on that level. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. But it was very intense, and I really felt myself on the verge of having an emotional breakdown, a psychological breakdown. And in order to save myself, I left the church. And even that was very difficult because now you have to deal with the added pressure of being, like an outcast, right? With your family, with your community, whatever, because you chose to be disobedient and to leave. Um, at the same time, I started learning about my African heritage and just learning the real history of slavery and colonialism and being aware of all of the manifestations of racism in our society. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s and seeing what crack had done to our communities, the way that I was treated by the police, when I went out into the larger world, the way, I started to experience racism and recognizing institutional institutional racism. And so I had this romantic idea that, like Africa was a paradise. Let me read some of these comments. Lito says, the psychiatrist is just an emotionally disturbed. A lot of times, yes, that is true. Listen, I've met so many children of psychiatrists and psychologists, and man, listen, chock full of nuts. Chock full of nuts. A lot of times people get into psychology because they're trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with them, if we really tell the truth. But, at the end of the day, man, it's like they're not all screwed up. I think it's like with anything, you need to do your research to find the right person for you. But in seeking help, you need to have people who are grounded in reality. And when you're in these kind of churches where they're giving you this mystical, magical outlook on life, it sets you up for failure. Because how are you going to deal with real life situations when you think that everything that's happening to you is because of a demon? You know? So I had to really pull myself out of that, and I had to deprogram myself to realize that everything wasn't an evil spirit. Everything that's going wrong in my life, it's not because somebody's working brujeria. You know? If your TV stops working, it's not because of a demon. It's not because somebody's working brujeria when it's just because that's life, you know? But that's how deep it was. It's like you couldn't cope with just everyday situations because everything literally was the devil or demons or brujeria. And I had to, when you're surrounded by this for most of your life or your formative years, it makes it very difficult to live in the real world, you know? So it took me a very long time to deprogram myself from that level of thinking. But, like I was saying, at the same time, realizing the reality of racism and all of this stuff. And so I had this very black and white idea that everything black is good and everything white is bad. And you see, the problem with that is that, once again, it's a distortion of reality. And unfortunately, it's a distortion of reality that is pushed in our society by a lot of propaganda, because it's not saying that we shouldn't recognize the injustices that have happened to us or to downplay it, but there has to be balance. So, yes, slavery happened, segregation happened, injustice happened, Jim Crow, all of that stuff, and it's still happening. But at the same time, there needs to be a realization and the wisdom of the reality of this world. And the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, we are all just human beings. Whatever external color we happen to have, it's circumstantial. What really makes us human beings is not what's on our external appearance, but what's inside of ourselves here and in here, our minds and our character. And in this world, you have personalities. Wherever you go, there are certain personalities in this world that are just predatory. As living organisms, all life forms, we have one prime directive, and that is survival, right? Every life form has that directive. Even a cockroach, you turn on a light, what do? They start running. Why? It's an instinct for self-preservation. So every life form that you see has that instinct for preservation of their own lives, right? And human beings were no different. We have that same prime directive hardwired into us. But the difference is how we go about meeting our needs. And unfortunately, there's certain personality types out here who, in order to maintain their well-being, they're willing to do anything and everything in order to preserve their interests. So if it means taking advantage of somebody, if it means exploiting somebody, hurting somebody, killing somebody, they have no problems doing it. And that mentality, that personality type is found in every community around the world, regardless of color, regardless of any of that. So now when it comes to religion, a lot of us, like myself, have experienced negative situations with Christianity, whether it's the realization of what was done to us historically or just, from life experiences. And as people of African descent, we want to get away from the history of exploitation, of racial exploitation. And so we look to Africa for salvation. We look to Africans for salvation, erroneously thinking that they've got something that we don't have. And we don't realize that just because they may be the same skin tone, the same skin color as us, just because we may share a common ancestry, it doesn't mean that these people have any sense of loyalty towards us whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying that to take it to the other extreme and say, all Africans, they just don't give a fuck about us and fuck them. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we have to be a little bit more sophisticated and mature in our analysis of the world and life and the people that we deal with. Should we be united in all of this thing? Yeah, we should be. Absolutely. But even taking it one step further, all humanity should be united because at the end of the day, we all got to live on this dust bowl together. Ain't nobody else got another planet that they can go to if this one gets fucked up. But the circumstances that we're living in this period of time, in this society, is one where we're still dealing with the effects of racism and discrimination and all the things that come with it. And we're looking for solutions. But we make a really big mistake when we limit ourselves to polarized thinking, black and white, without realizing the nuances, right? So looking at these people in Nigeria now, like whether they're real priests or not, at the end of the day, and this is something that goes for all religious traditions, at the end of the day, these people are all human beings. And that means that they have the same capacity for good and for evil as anyone else. Whether you agree with the religious or the spiritual philosophy or not, the fact of the matter is, it's not the religion that makes a person good or bad. It's their character. You can be a practicing Muslim and have impeccable character. It wasn't Islam that made you a good person. It was your character, your sense of right and wrong, your values. You can be a Muslim and have horrible character. And we see a lot of examples. Look at what's happening in Afghanistan right now. What's the difference between those people, the Taliban, and another group of Muslims who are really good people? What's the difference? It's not the religion, because they're practicing the same religion. They believe in the same religion. The difference is their character. You have Jewish people who are some of the best people you will ever meet in the world. And then you have Jews who are the fucking scum of the earth. And I've had the opportunity to meet both sides of the spectrum. There are Jewish people that I know in my life who were such a blessing to me. They helped me out when I was going through some of the darkest periods of my life. They lifted me up. And there are Jewish people who they fit every stereotype to a T. And, like when I was going through the stuff that I was going through with my mom, like the people that owned that facility were Orthodox Jews, and they fit every negative Jewish stereotype that you can think of. If it wasn't for the fact that I had people in my life who were Jewish, who were beautiful people that I loved, I would have turned into an anti-Semite. But once again, was it the religion that made them that way? Or was it their character? At the end of the day, they have the same prime directive, self-preservation. And people of low character will do anything and everything to anybody in order to get over, in order to survive. That's just the truth. Morena says, remember that Lukumi per se is a way of life, not so much a religion. Yeah, Morena, that's absolutely true. But at the end of the day, regardless of what it is, we still have to recognize the fact that we have people in this way of life, in this culture, you know, who at the end of the day are human beings who have that prime directive of self preservation. And based on the level of evolution of their character, they will either be a blessing to their communities and to the people around them, or they'll be the complete opposite. And unfortunately, what a lot of people don't realize and what they don't recognize is that at the end of the day, even though it is developing, Nigeria is a poor country. And so people are trying to survive. And that even goes for people who are in these traditional spiritual practices. When you have a group of foreigners, we come over there thinking that we're so broken and, oh, we're so lacking, we're damaged goods. But them looking at us, they see, I don't know what the hell you talking about. What are you crying about? Your life is fucking sweet. You had the money to, I mean, and it costs money. Going to Nigeria, that's not a cheap trip. So imagine you're trying to tell these people who are living in real poverty now how oppressed you are, how poverty stricken you are, how you suffer from racism and all of this shit, but you're wearing brand name clothes. You had thousands of dollars to spill out to buy a plane ticket. You're staying in a five-star hotel. Like, really? Does that make sense to you? It's like they know what real fucking poverty is. And, like, for example, let's look at it from our perspective. If we're sitting here and we see some prince from Saudi Arabia coming over here, driving a limousine, being chauffeured around, telling us about how oppressed he is and how he suffers from poverty, like, we won't be like, bitch, what? you know, it just reminds me of, like, the time in the Great Depression, when the stock market crashed. You had people who were literally jumping out of fucking windows because they lost, because they lost some money. Like, so if you were a millionaire, oh shit, I'm not a millionaire anymore. I'm upper middle class. Oh my God. You know, life is so cruel. I just can't live like this anymore. I'm just going to jump out of the fucking window. you know, I mean, really, think about how we must look to them. We have adequate, well, much better healthcare than they do. We have access to free education. We have good jobs, you know, and you're talking to people who they don't know where a lot of them sometimes where their next meal is coming from. You're trying to convince them of how broken you are. So, are you surprised that somebody, just because they're in a spiritual tradition, they see these people show up with all this money to burn? Like, are you surprised that, a ceremony that should cost, I don't know, maybe $50 if you do the conversion rate, they're charging you like three, four, $500, $1,000 to do it? Not everybody has the strength of character to not go the route of, well, they can afford it, so why not? Then you have the people that they're not even in any kind of fucking tradition whatsoever. Let's talk about that one, right? They don't know, they wouldn't know the religion or real ceremony or anything if it ran up and fucked them in the ass, right? Just because this person is from a certain country doesn't mean that they understand all the cultural elements in that society. If you didn't grow up with that tradition, if you didn't grow up in it, you don't know anything about it. And the overwhelming majority of people in Nigeria today are either Muslims or Christians. So when you're talking to them about Ifa and all of this shit, they don't know what the fuck that is. The last person in their family line that followed that tradition was probably their great great grandparent or something. They've been born again Christian or Catholic or whatever for God knows how many generations. They don't know, but they see these people showing up looking for the magic, right? The magic that's going to save them. And you're living in an impoverished situation. Come on. These people, they don't speak the language. They're not from here. They don't know. All I got to do is put on some garb and put on some beads and say a whole bunch of bullshit. They won't know the fuck I'm doing. And I can charge them thousands of dollars to do it. That shit happens. So now how does this relate to me, my personal experience coming to the Lukumi tradition? Just like everything else, you have people in every tradition who are stable mentally, emotionally, who are of good character and who are not. And unfortunately, when you're running around in a state of desperation, predators can smell that shit, you know? Predators can smell a victim. If you're running around with a victim mentality and thinking that, oh my God, brujeria, el diablo, ay Dios mío, my life is so fucked up. I'm cursed. My family's cursed. Oh, oh. There are people out there who they can smell the blood in the water and they will take advantage of you. And how many times out of desperation, because, I still had that programming from the churches and all of this, that the devil was after me, I find myself going to people for consultations, for readings, for spiritual baths and all this kind of shit. People who are just completely taking advantage of my desperation and my ignorance. Oh my God. This one time, this one time, I end up at this Nigerian. I thought he was part of the tradition. This man from Nigeria. I get to his place somewhere in Brooklyn, and he's telling me about how he's the personal consultant of Bill Clinton and how he works for all of these millionaires and all of this shit. And I'm just like, I don't know what to think. But I'm so desperate. I need help. This must be the person who's going to give me this help because, he was recommended to me by somebody that he's so wonderful. So I'm sitting there. This motherfucker starts the reading. And I'm looking at all of this paraphernalia all around the room now, right? Now, the rational part of my mind is asking myself, well, if he's the consultant to Bill Clinton, why the fuck he live in the ghetto? But, when you're desperate, you will override your common sense. This motherfucker has this battery-operated Black Angel with wings. He's got a little coffin, and a black battery operated angel with wings. And yes, the wings are flapping and the head is going around like this and the wings are flapping. Oh my God. And it's like the angel is supposed to be his spirit guide, and the coffin, I'm supposed to put all my, pray and put all my worries in the coffin. I forgot how much money that costed me, but when you're in a situation that is just so fucking ridiculous, but you don't know how to get you don't know how to get out of it. Like, this can't possibly be fucking happening to me. But at the same time, when you're a little broken like that emotionally, you're afraid to call bullshit out and walk up out of there, So I walked up out of there after paying like almost $100. Like, what the fuck just happened? Oh my God. Like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, oh my God. And then you want to fucking slap yourself because you didn't have the common sense to just get up and leave, right? Because somewhere in the back of your mind, there's that irrational fear that, well, first of all, I'm cursed, right? Because the devil is after me. Second of all, this man, he's got some kind of spiritual power. Maybe if I piss him off, he's going to do something to fuck me up and make it even worse. You know, and it doesn't occur to you, this man doesn't have any fucking power whatsoever, but this is how they get you, right? They get you by working on your fears and your insecurity and your desperation. And when you're in that state, you don't have the capacity to make rational judgments. Oh my goodness, man. Then there was the Lukumi house. Now, these next people, they definitely were part of the Lukumi tradition, but they were insane. And I went through so much fucking headache and confusion with these people. I'm glad that by this point, I started developing some kind of strength within myself to be like, you know what? This is some fucking bullshit. And I'm leaving. And that's when I left. And I left. I didn't have anything to do with the tradition for years. I prayed, please God, if this is where I'm supposed to be, you're going to have to send me some sane people who have good character, because all I'm seeing is a whole bunch of crazy ass people on some bullshit. And I met years later, I met my godmother and my godfather, but still, I had a lot of I had a lot of baggage that I had to let go of, because I still had this programming that, well, I had a lot of bitterness towards Christianity and Abrahamic traditions in general, which I'm not 100% over that, but I'm a lot better than I was, let's say, 10 years ago, okay? And I've gotten to the point where I can look at reality and see that, something, it's not the religion that makes a difference, it's the character of the person. So, as being someone who has gone down this route of feeling that I was somehow lacking, not good enough, broken, I'm not racially pure, I don't have my original language, slavery happened, they took everything away from me. I had to gradually work my way out of that victim thinking and realize that I'm not broken. I'm not damaged goods. I am perfect, complete, and whole, just as God made me for this lifetime experience. And so, this is what I'd like to say to all of my fellow brothers and sisters of the African diaspora who may be struggling with coming to terms with the weight of everything that we did experience, right? With slavery, with racism, and what we're still dealing with now, and struggling with this feeling that somehow we're lacking when compared to other people, to other cultural groups, because we don't have what they have. And, African people in Africa, they have it above us because they still have their original language, whatever, whatever. Listen, baby, when you came into this lifetime experience, this was an agreement between you and God, however you conceptualize God, right? And you were given your objectives, and you were sent to the right place that had the right circumstances for you to fulfill the objectives that you came into this lifetime experience with. So if you're not racially 100% African, that doesn't matter. For whatever reason, you had to come through those ancestral lines. If you were born in the United States rather than in Nigeria, that's because whatever work is meant for you to do in this world, you had to be born right where you were born in order to do it, not Nigeria. So recognize the fact that we are not broken, we are not less than, we are not victims. Do we have work to do to overcome certain things? Yes, we do. And that work that we have to do is designed for us to develop the strengths within us, right? Justice for Breonna Taylor, absolutely. So it doesn't mean that what happened to her was not egregious. Absolutely. But for those of us who have survived that, maybe part of our mission in this lifetime experience is to help to raise the level of consciousness of the society that we live in, so that other people don't have to experience that. Because at the end of the day, in the totality of the universe, we're here to raise our levels of consciousness. So the reason why something like that could happen to Breonna Taylor is because there's still a lot of people in this world who are operating on a low level of a low frequency of consciousness. And that's why those things happen. So by us fighting for justice for Breonna, it helps to bring awareness to the situation. It helps to raise the consciousness not only of Black people, but of humanity as a whole. And that puts humanity as a whole, it helps us to evolve further on an energetic, spiritual level of consciousness. So, yeah, I mean, it's not easy to see things like that. It's not easy to experience it. God knows it's not easy by any sense, if that's somebody, your friend or your family member. But, understand that at the end of the day, we're here to work on ourselves. So the brother is back. What is African spiritual tradition? African spiritual tradition, to answer that question, are the many different, and it's not one tradition, there are many different traditions, but it's speaking to the spiritual traditions and philosophies that different African cultures had prior to the colonial experience of Europeans and Muslims, who came in and converted people to these Abrahamic traditions. Every society in Africa and every society in the world has its spiritual traditions. So in my particular case, I follow a tradition called Lukumi, which developed in Cuba from the Yoruba people, and some other people, some elements there might come from the Congo people. But anyway, these people who came from Africa came to Cuba and they were able to retain elements of the original tradition of the Yoruba people. In Haiti, you have the tradition known as Voodoo, which was developed from a mixture of Catholicism and the traditions from the people of Benin, which is a neighboring people of the Yoruba people. There's certain similarities that they have, but there are also very, marked differences. So that's what I mean by African spiritual tradition, So, like I said, in my case specifically, I'm talking about the tradition that came out of Cuba. If you go to Brazil, they have several traditions there that also derive from that Yoruba tradition. What's up? How have you been? I am doing a live stream later today, bro. If I have the time, I'll try to drop in. I've been trying to make everybody's live streams, but I've been so ridiculously busy. Like last week I was gigging all weekend, and tomorrow I got a gig. So I got to get ready for that. George Floyd was a waste of breath, same as Rodney King. Well, that might be your opinion, and you're welcome to it. But in the totality of life, nobody in this planet is a waste of breath. You know, and I'm really sorry for whatever happened to you to make you feel that way. Hey, Fenrir, what's up? And that's just Guanaco. All that means is that you need to be about the business of your own spiritual elevation, because to have that kind of mentality about your fellow human beings is not good. All the riots of Rodney King and that dude died drunk. He wasn't drunk. But nothing came out of it. A lot of good has come out of it, because it has raised the level of consciousness of a lot of people, not only here in the United States, but it really resonated with people around the world. It went global. And so now people in countries, you have people who are beginning to have conversations about police brutality, injustice, and things of that nature. So it was not in vain. QB Willie. Oh, oh, you two are going. You're going after Cam. I didn't even know, is he still around? I haven't even like checked in on dude to see what's going on with him. But whatever. So I'm gonna wrap this up. But the point that I wanted to make here is that the big takeaway from all of this is that at the end of the day, number one, everything that is black is not beautiful, and everything that is white is not wicked. Everything that is white is not wonderful, and everything that's black is not bad. We have to look beyond these superficial divisions of black, of white, of this culture versus that culture. And you know something? It just never ends, because if it wasn't blacks versus whites, it would be something else. And another time in another society, well, hell, in another part of the world, the issue is not about race, it's about religion, right? Look at what's happening in Afghanistan right now. The worst thing that can befall a human being is to lose your life, right? Racism has caused a lot of people to lose their lives. It's destroyed the quality of their lives, and that's why it's bad. But religious intolerance has done the exact same thing. Religious intolerance has been responsible for millions of people losing their lives, responsible for destroying the quality of life of millions of people. Sexism has destroyed, has killed millions of people. When you stop and you think about the witch burnings that happened in Europe, there were entire villages where every last single woman was put to death. The way women's lives have been curtailed that they could not live their best lives. So all of these isms, they all have the same effect. So we have to look beyond, our own little whatever particular ism it is that we're experiencing and look to the underlying issue beneath it. The quality of life that we have and the way we live our lives, and to be about the business of improving our levels of consciousness, not only for ourselves, but for humanity as a whole. Oh man, Kim, 8 hour live streams again. Yeah, listen, Kim's been doing that for over 11 years now. Listen, perfect example of someone that needs to work on their lives and their character, because how empty must your life be that this is the only thing you have to talk about every freaking day? Every freaking day. And when you're not talking about it, you're busy watching 6, 7, 8 hour live streams, scouring YouTube to find videos so you can make videos about these people. I mean, that's a really sad life. That's no way to live life. So you can be pissed off at people like this, but at the end of the day, you really got to feel sad for them. You really got to feel sorry for them, because if they were happy and fulfilled in their lives, they wouldn't have time for this kind of nonsense. The one thing you want to make sure is that you don't become the very thing that you hate. So it's one thing to be pissed off at Kim and what he's doing, but you don't want to become Kim in reverse. You know what I'm saying? So that's the first thing, recognizing the fact that the traffic is backed up. What the fuck do you want? Where you expect them to go? God damn. Recognizing that it's not a person's skin color that makes them who they are, for better or for worse. It's not their religion that makes them who they are, for better or for worse. It's their character. So if you want to practice a traditional African, philosophy or way of life, by all means, why not? But do not get into it out of a sense of desperation. Don't get into it out of a sense that you are somehow damaged goods and you're not as good as, or these people in this particular place, they're better than you in some kind of way. Ain't nobody on this earth any better than you. Oh, I don't speak Yoruba, that means I'm not as good as. Listen, they're not better than you. And if you encounter somebody who would try to make you believe that, by all means, feel perfectly empowered to tell them to go fuck themselves. Maybe in a more polite way, but you know what I'm trying to say. Don't let anybody try to diminish you in any way whatsoever. You have all of the same capacities to be as great as you want to be or as low as you want to be. And whichever one you cultivate the most is what becomes your default personality. So feel good about yourself, love yourself. Listen, if you happen to be a Christian and Christianity works for you, knock yourself out. If Christianity or Judaism or Islam is not working for you, and you really feel that yearning inside of yourself that you want to be in a system that's closer to your ancestral legacy, by all means, go for it. Just don't be in a rush. Take your time to do as much research as you can, find out what it's about, and really scrutinize the people that you're getting involved with to make sure that these are people of good character. Take a year, take 2 years, take 3 years, however long it takes. Do your due diligence, and if you see them doing some kind of stuff that's funny style, don't feel discouraged or bad about it. Just realize that at the end of the day, they're human beings just like everybody else, and they have their failings and their strong points. But if they're deficient in some way that has no bearing on you or or your life whatsoever, just keep it moving and knock on as many doors as you can until you find the door that's right for you. So at the end of the day, whatever spiritual tradition you follow, it has to be in line with your principles, your morals, and you have to feel comfortable there. You shouldn't feel like you have to compromise yourself in any way to be a part of something. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Thank you for all 6, 7, sometimes 10. For all of you people who came in to listen to me flap my gums, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to having another moment to have a conversation with you. So have a great day today. Have a wonderful weekend. As always, love, light, peace, prosperity, and perfect health to all of you, even my haters. For my haters, don't forget, leave me a like, okay? Peace.